What's going on, everybody? My name is Box, aka the Pandaren Warrior, on Area 52. Probably not Area 52 for much longer, but welcome to another episode of the Kun-Lai Campfire. Today I'm with the legendary Kai, aka Chen Tao on Wormrest Accord, and Skull Shorties, aka Banarak on Wormrest Accord. Adam on Discord. I don't know about Discord, but welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You guys raid Area 52?
I already raided Area 52 like 18 times. But, today, we have a pretty legendary topic. Now, we did a video about 2 months ago related to the first 3 expansions of World of Warcraft, Burning Crusade, Wrath, and Kata. Today we're going to finish that up with the sequel trilogy, Mop through Legion, and we're actually going to not include BFA in this episode because we feel Battle for Azeroth is no doubtedly worthy of its own video when it's done, and that's not in a bad way. That's just, we don't feel it's fair to judge the expansion as it is at the moment. That's just my take on it. So we're gonna start with Mists of Pandaria, which, just to start it out, I can already say the 3 of us really like Mop, but there's a lot to talk about, and I have these kind of divided into different categories. So we're gonna first start with the initial reception of these expansions as they were announced. Maybe, I guess, share some stories on what we thought. I'd actually like to start first, if that's okay, because I have a really interesting history with Pandaria at the time.
Go for it.
So I was a senior in high school when Mists of Pandaria was announced, and actually, as much as I love the Pandaren and I really love Mop, at the time when they announced it, I was excited for the Pandaren to be playable. I was really, really excited about that. I'm like, oh my god, they're actually coming in the game. But at the time, I was very skeptical about the whole expansion being themed around them, and then a whole expansion being a faction war. Because at that time, I remember they announced Garrosh was going to be the villain of the expansion, but at that time, I was really set on having a big box art villain like Deathwing and the Lich King and Illidan, and I wasn't too keen on that idea of having Garrosh be the villain of the expansion. Now, this is me going back in time. I think it would have been really great had Blizzard potentially had Garrosh be revealed as the villain without telling us. I think that could have been a more interesting plot at the time. However, as time went on and the more I played the expansion, I didn't get to play too much at the start of it. I'd leveled a monk named Bogzashu on Bleeding Hollow, and the class itself, I like the way it looks. I really like it visually, but like gameplay wise, it still doesn't jive with me as much. But I still love the Pandaren. Boximus was actually made later on in the expansion, but I guess going backwards, I didn't play too much in the initial patch. In even 5.2, I came in halfway through, and I really, really liked it. I mean, it grew on me a lot. The initial patch, it wasn't that I didn't like the expansion. I really liked it a lot. I just had a lot going on at a high school at the time. But I guess, in my opinion, I think one of the reasons that sparked a lot of hate for Pandaria was that initial trailer, the way it was built up, which I think is a damn shame because it wound up being a beautiful expansion that everybody appreciates now. I did appreciate it as soon as I stepped foot into it and started playing it, but that was just me at the initial launch. And I'm sorry if I went on a long tangent there, but there's a lot I can really talk about this expansion.
How dare you?
It's very interesting. I will be honest, whenever it was announced, I know I've mentioned this before, I was extremely skeptical, very surprised. It was not the direction I expected WoW to go in.
Right.
Pandaren did not appeal to me initially, I will be honest. But now they're my favorite race. I think their lore is absolutely amazing. I love their aesthetics. I stepped into the leveling zones and just immediately fell in love. Only took a week or so until I was like, I'm going to try out a Pandaren, and now they're pretty much all I play.
They're so beautiful. I love the Pandaren. Sorry to cut you off, but they're just so, like, their animations are one of the reasons why I love playing them so much, too.
Yeah, especially the melee animations.
Oh,
well, for the male Pandaren. Well, actually, female Pandaren have awesome melee animations as well.
They both do. Like, I fell in love with the Pandaren Warrior the first time I played Box when I was in the starting zone. I saw that animation with the two-handed sword. So badass.
Yes. Totally agreed.
But did you think, Kai, I'm going to throw this one to you because I guess the floor is yours right now. Do you think the initial trailer was a bad representation of what the expansion was? And do you think Blizzard should have announced Garrosh as the villain at the start?
Actually, I don't think they should have. I really liked that Mist kind of felt more like an open... I guess in that sense it feels a bit more open world if you're not kind of centralizing all the attention on somebody from the very beginning. That's just my personal opinion. I liked that Mists of Pandaria had a very exploration kind of feel to it. It's this kind of thing that I expected out of the hypothetical South Seas expansion, which is BFA. And I guess for it, maybe it's just me, but I don't really like having the central bad guy kind of thing. I like having a lot of shades of different things. Like everybody kind of has their own enemy rather than everybody has one enemy. Do you get what I'm saying?
100%. I'm actually, not to challenge you, but I'm 50-50 on that. I like having a big villain, but I like having a bunch of different villains, like you were saying, in that way, where it's more about the world and maybe things get built up, like you were kind of saying, I think.
Yeah.
I think Pandaria, in general, did a very good job of telling a story through the world with the Shah, and like I made a video about the burdens of Shauhao, but I think it's really cool that storyline spread across the continent, and then they did the animation for it.
Definitely, yeah. Oh, that was amazing. I loved the burdens of Shauhao.
I learn new stuff every day, actually, that I didn't even find about Pandaria sometimes when I'm surfing the web or just even playing through it on an alt. I'm like, that's really neat. And it's amazing that I still find it amazing, to be honest, that there's people that still hate on Pandaria and the Pandaren to this day. And that's something that I can't understand, but I just find it amazing. Like I said, I think Mists of Pandaria was one of the most well-crafted expansions, and from a game design perspective too. I mean, I felt like at the time when scaling wasn't a thing, you had one of the more choose-your-own-adventure style leveling experiences, right? Like you got to 87 and you could essentially go to Kun-Lai, Valley of the Four Winds, or Kerosene Wilds. I'm bad at pronouncing stuff, I apologize, but that's just my take on that.
Yeah.
So, I guess before I get any more, because like I said, I'm going on tangents right now because I love Mop, I'm sorry. Skull, what do you think about the initial reception and the announcement of Pandaren and Garrosh as a villain? The same question I asked Kai.
Oh, yeah. I can answer. I've been waiting patiently and quietly, too. You know, like, I'm thinking back on it, and I didn't feel skepticism towards Mists of Pandaria at all. I just felt really excited and really happy about the Pandaren, and when I heard that it was getting so many dislikes, I didn't understand it because I was so... I fell in love with the patch cinematic trailer for a very quiet time, because you have the voice of Thrall, you have Chris Metzen talking about what has happened all over the course of WoW's history, of defeating the Burning Legion, defeating Illidan, defeating Arthas, defeating... now Deathwing. And I just felt really excited and really happy about the Pandaren finally being brought into the WoW, because for a while, like, I remember when I first started out in Wrath, and I was 11 years old, and I was asking my mom, where are the Pandaren? Where's Shen Stormstone? She had no idea what I was talking about, because she never played Warcraft 3.
Hidden away in Stone Talon.
I mean, I think there was like a Baron's quest where you could find like Shen's keg or something. Like it was a small little nod to Shen existing. But the Pandaren were Enigma. They weren't even in the game at that point. And then Mr. Pandaria announces them, and I was really happy. Cataclysm for me was a mixed bag of both good and bad. And Mr. Pandaria, to me, at the very beginning, I knew I'd love it. And I was super excited when it first came out. I remember I was in middle school, on the verge of going to high school, and I remember I was like 3 a.m. because that's how when WoW comes out on US time. I woke up at 3 a.m. just to play it early, and I love the Jade Forest intro quests.
My gosh, me too, dude. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
The Jade Forest intro quests and the Jade Forest in general was probably my favorite part about Pandaria. Each of the questing zones in general were really good, and I think they captured they captured their own themes and their own stories, but they all felt connected because like Jade Forest, it ends with the Horn Alliance going to war and bringing this chaos to the land. And our first introduction to like a big giant Shah and like how much destruction like our war can really bring on such a gentle area like Pandaria, where emotions really do manifest and try to murder you.
It was also really cool stepping into something we haven't seen before, or we didn't know what to expect, and it's cool seeing the characters react the same way, like Nazgrim, what was her name, Shokia, and that little crew Rico you had in the Jade Forest. Well, Rico was from Pandaria, but
I love the character dynamics of I don't really remember the Alliance ones too well, sadly, but that's just because I'm Horde.
We have Admiral
all the way
Taylor,
through.
The counterfeit Nazgrim. No, I'm just kidding. Forgive me for saying that.
I don't disagree with you though. I love the interactions of those characters of Nazgrim, Rico, Kieran, Shakia, and so forth. But just like all the zones, the music, the scenery, just everything about Pandaria, I really enjoyed at the start. And with Garrosh as a villain. Like, I remember they announced it at BlizzCon, and from like what my friends told me, I don't remember it either, but this is what my friend told me. He could be wrong. He said something along the lines of they were telling what Garrosh was doing, and I think people were trying to leave because of that, because they were getting really upset about
at BlizzCon.
I think so.
Wow.
Again, that's what my friend's telling me. They could be lying to me easily, but my friend said that people were starting to leave when they were talking about what Garrosh was doing to the Alliance, and like apparently Alliance players and people who hate Garrosh were trying to leave, and they panicked apparently, and said that Garrosh was going to be the final boss of Mists of Pandaria, which could be true, could be wrong, I don't know, but personally I like big bads being confirmed at the start. I don't like this guessing game that we have right now of who's going to be the final boss, because it can suffer people's expectations, because in Wars of Draenor they were like Grom Hellscrim's going to be the end boss, and that was like, nope, it's Archimonde. And I think a lot of people were disappointed by that.
Oh, we'll get to that. We will get to that. Oh, me too. I'm pointing at my screen too when I say that. So, and I don't want to cut you off, Skull, but because there's a lot to cover, and I think we're already like 10 minutes in, 14 minutes. Wow. So, now that we've talked about the initial reception, I'd like to talk about the storyline of Mop, because personally, I think Mop had the best story that was told in-game and out-of-game. It was just a very well-crafted storyline, and the writing was so tight in it. And again, from the world building to the actual narrative with the faction war and the civil war and the build up to it, it felt a lot better than, in my opinion, BFA does right now with the faction war. It felt more natural. It felt very good with Vol'jin leading the charge against Garrosh, the Thunder King, the Zandalari. I can't say enough good things about the Pandaren. Even the Wandering Isle with the two philosophies of the Hwauzi and the Teshui.
Gosh. That's my favorite.
It's so interesting, and it's amazing even thinking about it now, because when you go back to that zone, and I even made a video on this recently, but both characters are correct in their stances. There's no really wrong answer there, but one might disagree with each other, so there is. So it really gets you thinking, and that's something that like I said, I'd love to see Blizzard explore more in a quest chain. But man, all the new races we got, the Mogu, the Jinyu. I really like the Jinyu, by the way. The Hosen, which I also really liked. The Sarok, am I forgetting? The Yongle. There was a lot of good stuff. The Grummels. I mean, there's so many memorable things and characters in Pandaria, and it's so good. Lorewalker Cho is like the most underused character in World of Warcraft's lore.
He needs to come back.
We need him to narrate some stories for us, or at least like it would be really badass if you could go to the Vale and he tells like past storylines, or even you could ask him about like, hey, what happened here, and he has like the cutscenes, like the player character cutscenes that you've done in the past. Something like that would be cool if he's like a lore keeper, because that is kind of what he is, a lore walker. But,
I was gonna say they could probably find a way to incorporate him being like an archaeology NPC, like throughout the expansions,
Oh, I would absolutely love that. And like, I could go on and on about the patches, and I don't want to dwell on Pandaria too much as I love it, because we have a lot of ground to cover between Legion and Warlords, too. But essentially, I did feel Mop had probably the strongest storyline that Blizzard's ever made. I mean, even... I believe it or not, I love Mop. I'd probably consider it my second favorite expansion, next to Wrath of the Lich King, due to some nostalgic reasons for that expansion. But I just thought it was just awesome, and I really hope Blizzard one day decides to take a risk like Mop again in terms of storytelling. Like, I want to go somewhere that we haven't seen yet, with new races, new characters. That's just my take on it. I thought it was beautifully done, and the Civil War storyline was really one of the most fun times I had. I remember watching on Twitch when the Siege of Orgrimmar released, just waiting for that end cinematic, waiting to find out who was going to take the mantle of War Chief. Even though it was pretty obvious it was Vol'jin, there were still signs in the storyline of little red herrings like Lor'themar that it could have been somebody else at the time. So that's just my take, but I just thought it was just a fun storyline to be a part of, and I'm glad I was able to play during that storyline, especially around the 5.3, 5.4 era. The Timeless Isle, I could go on and on, but I give it the box 2 thumbs up. Really, really good. Loved it. So I'll throw that to either of you guys, because I know you guys are gonna kind of probably go on a similar good rant about it.
I can kind of wrap mine up in a short, I guess you would say, deal.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely agree. Mop had the best storytelling I've ever seen in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Even still, the Rebellion was just the best. I absolutely loved playing during that time, especially as a role player, and especially since that was like whenever I was finally getting into Horde roleplay.
Mm-hmm.
That was just such a great time to do it. It was so interesting. There were so many, I guess, different ways of going about a character, having. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like I especially loved how you said the Tushui and the Huojin, like the dual philosophies, and how they show that people can be opposed to one another in WoW in a way that isn't, hey, you look different than me, I hate you. You know, it's actual ideological differences, and not just being flat out evil or flat out good, which I do think they're going more that way, or they're going to start going more that way narratively from here on out. But that was one thing I really loved about Pandaren, because you look at them and you're like, oh, they're the gentle, goofy, tubby people, you don't really expect that much out of them. There's actually a lot of depth to them. They're not just about wearing red and blue. Like, there's actual reasons for their fighting. And, yeah. Anyway, last note. Last patch definitely went on way too long.
Oh,
but
yeah.
As a role player, it wasn't quite that bad, because there's always stuff to do for us. But like content-wise, that last patch was like happy birthday 5.4.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh.
It's so true though.
It was a year-long patch. Oh god.
Yeah, I remember all the memes like "Happy Birthday 5.4."
That was terrible.
Oh,
Poor Garrosh had to get sieged for a year.
Oh yeah, that poor guy.
So, Banneret. That is me. I can finally talk again. Just Mists of Pandaria's story is just. I can really say only positive things about it, and I was. We'll get to it when we get to it, but when I was like, okay, Blizzard, they have a really good route now. Keep at it. Keep going forward beyond Mists of Pandaria with this type of story, and of course they didn't. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But the Pandaren in general, like when you think about the Pandaren, you don't expect much from them, and what Blizzard basically did was they took the story, these characters, the Pandaren, and they gave them their own story. Like Pandaren itself is its own fresh story. It's not connected to any of the established story that we've been so used to over the years with like the Lich King and the demons of the Burning Legion, and Deathwing and the Old Gods. No, Pandaria was completely fresh, new story, and I love that they did that with the Mogu, like Chronicles, they did more justice with Lei Shen, sadly, but I think that if they did that in Mr. Pandaria with what they did with Lei Shen and Chronicles, he would have been a more well received villain than he was at the time. But the rebellion, I love the Aga Celestials too, and the whole things with Rathian going
Oh my
on in the
gosh,
background.
yeah.
That I love the legendary quest line. That was one of my favorite things of like we were kind of getting hints of what happened to the Titans with Rathian and Pandaria, and it wasn't really fully explained to us, but it was foreshadowed, and I really liked that.
Yeah, it left a sense of mystery about the world.
Yeah, it did. It did a really good job at solving certain mysteries. You had like the Claxi at the end of that quest line. You had them warning you that, hey, we're going to side with Yasharaj if he should ever return, which he kind of did and kind of didn't through Garrosh. But I really like that they kind of wrapped up everything in the Siege of Orgrimmar into like a little nice bow. You had the Shadow Pan, tired of Garrosh's things with the cinematic. The cinematics were really good too. That's when Blizzard started getting really good at the cinematics, and they had the fight between Garrosh and Terranzu at the start of Siege of Orgrimmar, and like Kai said, the rebellion for role players was just magnificent.
It really was.
I just became a part of Warma's Accord when the rebellion started too, so it was like the perfect time for me to join Warma's Accord, and I just loved it. But the Siege of Orgrimmar did a really good job of wrapping everything up in Mists of Pandaria with the Mantid, the Shadow Pan, the Mogu to a degree. I loved Mists of Pandaria's story, and it holds up so well. And I still miss its themes quite a bit. Legion, we kind of got a glimmer of it again, but we really haven't captured the magic of Mists of Pandaria, and I really wish they did.
And people, it's funny that you say that because people still talk about Mop's storyline to this day, how good it was. And to your point, I was going to say that I really liked how everything had a nice payoff at the end of the expansion, as well as a pretty nice, I would say, setup for the next one. I mean, I thought it was really cool how at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, Garrosh was spared. I was like, whoa, where are they going to go with this next? Because this is really interesting. I'll get to a little bit about that later on, but I'd kind of like everyone's overall thoughts on Mists of Pandaria, and where you'd rank it, I guess, of the overall expansions right now, just because we are about 25 minutes in right now and we have a lot of stuff to cover. I would say for me, Mists of Pandaria, I love the Pandaren so much. They're absolutely easily my favorite race. Whenever I make another alt, I always wonder, why am I not playing a Pandaren? Kai remembers I was leveling my illegal character, my Magart. No, I'm just kidding. But I was complaining, like, I wish this was a Pandaren rogue instead. But yeah, I love the Pandaren. I love the storyline. I love the setting. I was really happy to see them add an island expedition recently that takes place in Pandaria with some beautiful music that's probably in the background of this. But yeah, overall, Pandaria remains my second favorite expansion, and I don't think it'll ever be topped in that time slot. I said in my last video that Wrath of the Lich King was my favorite, but I'd almost put Pandaria tied with it, to tell you guys the truth. But it's still probably just a little bit below Wrath for me, but I absolutely loved it. I hope we get something, I guess, as like epic feeling as it's someday in WoW again. It's awesome. A plus, S tier. Awesome stuff. So I'll throw that to you guys.
I think, not to be a contrarian, but I think I would place it above Lich King for myself. I kept telling myself, I think they're about tied, or maybe Lich King would be better. But in truth, looking back, I'm like, no, I really did have more fun in Mists of Pandaria, not just with all this stuff, that I tried out for the first time. I tried out role-playing a bit before Mists of Pandaria, but like that's whenever I really got immersed into it.
Right.
But also PvP felt so good back then for me. Like the classes were just so fun. I liked the dailies. I know a lot of people hated them. I thought they were pretty cool. I thought they were creative. I do really love Lich King. Don't get me wrong, but overall, I do think I had more fun with Miss Pandaria. So, and the only thing I have to complain about was 5.4, like, just dragged on way too long, content-wise. But then again, I didn't really do much PvE content anyway, so I didn't really feel it as much as other people. But you know, looking out for them, dragged on way too long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Kai in regards to Mr. Pandaria's ranking. For a while, I put Mr. Pandaria and Wrath on the same page and made them pretty equal. But thinking over it completely, the more and more that I started thinking about it and playing both expansions, I always get more excited to level in Mr. Pandaria than Wrath. And
Definitely.
looking back on all the story and the lore, the music, the characters, I definitely ended up liking Mr. Pandaria more than Wrath. And that's not saying Wrath is bad. I still like Wrath with a lot, but Wrath's my second favorite. Mist is my first favorite, and there were so many great things in Pandaria. There was the Green Warlock quest that kind of referenced Illidan's plans, sort of.
Yeah.
You had I had a really fun time playing as a hunter in Mist of Pandaria with like Dire Beast as a new ability and Stampede. Stampede was a really fun ability back then. Now it's kind of boring. Mr. Pandaria is just, I hold it so dearly, and I remember when I was talking to my mom about it, I was like, man, I'm gonna miss this expansion when it's over, and she always told me, well, it's always there, it's not going anywhere, and I'm like, yeah, but it kind of like, it's concluded, there's no more to it, it's done, you're not gonna really return there, and then Legion kind of proves us wrong with that, but I really...
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say they might have only honestly returned because the monk class hall, like just
True.
because the monks you can't really, I guess, correlate them with any other race other than Pandaren and Pandaria. I feel like if they were, they might not have because let's face it, Pandaren are controversial, and Pandaria itself is a very controversial kind of subject. But I don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of people proclaim it to be. I don't think there's a crusade out there to like. It's like hating Pandaren and everything Pandaria related. It's like, you know, you see, I might see more gnome hate than I do Pandaren hate, to be honest.
I think the Pandaren hate has started to become more of a minority, to tell you the truth. I don't think there's a lot of people these days that hate on it.
Back in the day, it was. I remember I remember a lot of people hated on it, both on YouTube and the forums and. You know, just on I wasn't on Twitter back then, but I assume probably. But I hold a lot of respect. I remember when Mr. Pandaria first came out, I was watching the video about the devs talking about how much love they put in the game for Mr. Pandaria, and you don't really get those anymore. You don't get the devs talking about the work they put in for the expansion before release, and I kind of wish that they still did those.
Oh, I would love that.
I was just gonna say that I really hold Mr. Pandaria up there, and I don't know what else to really like. It's one of those things where like I have so many positive things to say about it, but I don't really know how to convey it too much.
I'll end it on this, the Pandaria discussion, because again, we could talk about the monk and so many different things, but essentially one thing that makes me really happy is that I think the whole community as a whole now appreciates Pandaria, and that's something that is really, really near and dear to me. I think it's good that people recognized how great this was, even later down the line at the very least, so we can eventually get something as great as it, in my opinion. I just think it's awesome that everybody likes it now, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm very happy about. Now, we're going to move into some uncharted or actually not uncharted territory, some very charted territory that's one of the most controversial, I would say, games of all time. Warlords of Draenor. I'm going to stand up for this. Okay. I suggest you both do the same. But I have a lot to say about this one. So again, I'm gonna start off with the. Oh yeah, I'm getting close to the campfire here in this. But I have a lot to say about this one, as I'm sure you both do. Warlords of Draenor for me wasn't my most anticipated game of all time. From its announcement, I was excited. I really liked the theme. I thought it was really cool that we were going to see all these orcs again. They're very prominent in Warcraft's lore. However, all of it fell very flat for me as it was released. The announcement did have me excited, and the new character models are really cool. I was excited for the Garrison at the time, and I'd be lying if I say I didn't have some fun with the Garrison when the expansion was first released, and I did enjoy Warlords leveling initially, and then the more I did it, the more I didn't like it. I really, really hate how lackluster Gorgrond and Talador are. Besides, I mean, the cutscene was great in Talador, but the questing itself. Spires, for some reason, always bored me. Not really sure why. And Nagrand was a good finale. I really, really did enjoy that. But the overall premise of the expansion being in an alternate timeline, I actually found kind of interesting when they announced it. I wasn't going to throw it out the door. Unfortunately, playing it gave me a very different feel when I was leveling. I said, are any of these characters going to matter? And it gave me that word, the filler expansion. And I don't like saying that, but it's kind of how I felt about it. It felt very filler at the time. For example, you had the alternate Velen just die, and I didn't feel anything because the main universe Velen still existed. It was like, oh, okay, whatever. You know? The AU stuff is interesting. I don't think I would ever do it again, going back in time, but I don't know, man. The things I did like about Warlords, I'll just get it off my chest right now. I liked Khadgar, and I liked the alternate Gul'dan a lot. Those were the two characters I enjoyed in Warlords. I thought Gromosh was incredibly disappointing, as was Kargath Bladefist, especially when in the beta he was originally supposed to live past Highmaul. I mean, they could have done so many more raids. They could have done a raid for each clan, the Shattered Hand, the Bleeding Hollow, the Battle of Shatrath. I mean, there's so many missed opportunities in Warlords, and that's what makes me sad. Visually, it's beautiful. It's beautiful visually. The music is some of the best in World of Warcraft, man. I still listen to that stuff to this day. It makes me sad because I think Warlords could have had the potential to be one of the better expansions, and it just fell flat in so many departments. I'm one of those people that I liked Garrosh's death. But I also would have preferred them do something else if they were going to let him live past Siege of Orgrimmar. Seeing him be a catalyst for the next storyline was just a little bit of a letdown for me, because I know when we were talking about Mop, I said I was really excited, like, oh, they left Garrosh alive. There must be some big plans for this guy, and then he just doesn't. And then in War Crimes too, even the Celestials, like they outright state like, oh, we left him alive because we think he could change, and then he proved he couldn't change, and that's, I found kind of, one, it made the Celestials look kind of dumb, but it also was just disappointing narratively for me. But again, I also don't hate the way they killed him off. I know that's a weird stance to have on it, but I've always kind of been very flip-floppy on it, much like Garrosh as a character sometimes when you think about it. Durotan was pretty cool too. I like Durotan and Draka. Thrall was pretty cool in Warlords. I could go on and on about the characters, but I think overall Warlords for me had to be one of the biggest disappointments of my life. I could go on and on about this, but I'll let you guys get to that initial reception because I just went on a huge rant right there, and I apologize.
No worries. You want to start on that one, Skull?
Yes, I would. As the, I really didn't get to talk about it too much here when we were talking about the Pandaren, because you guys both play the Pandaren. I'm the only orc person here. Like, I love the Pandaren. I have a Pandaren that I play, but I'm all about the orcs. So when they announced Warlords of Draenor about what Draenor looked like before it was Outlands, I was excited. I was super excited. This expansion, I was more excited than Mists of Pandaria. Honestly, I was more excited for this expansion than Cataclysm, and
wow.
I was so excited and pumped and happy, and I was like, again, like when Mists of Pandaria was over, I said, they got this. They know what they're doing. They've got this in the bag. I know what they can do, and down the crapper it goes. The Warlords of Draenor, its leveling was really good actually. The zones were really good, But after you hit level 100, it's downhill from there. Like, the music, as you said, the zones, the characters. For the most part, a lot of the characters really weren't that bad. I mean, on Alliance side, the only characters I really cared about was Khadgar and Murad. But on Horde, I ended up caring about a lot of the characters. The Laughing Skull, Duratan, Draka, Khadgar again, because Khadgar's on both sides. Thrall, I really liked Thrall in Wards of Draenor. To be honest with you, I think Thrall in Wards of Draenor was the best we had since Wrath. Really.
Thrall was pretty awesome.
The really only big issue I had with Thrall was his hair. Oh god, where'd it go? Why'd you shave it? You look awful, buddy.
The stress of being called Green Jesus by people.
I guess, but I mean, I think that the problem with Lords of Draenor, it's always, in my eyes, the expansion that could have been great, and it wasn't. The most thing I was excited for, though, was the new models, and they did good on that, at least. That's, like, the one thing that Lords of Draenor delivered on. The new models look amazing. Even to today's standards, which is good, because when the Pandaren were announced, they looked amazing, and then when you compare them to the old models back in the day, because you had the Pandaren models and the classic models, you were like, oh god, I look disgusting, please help. Lords of Draenor was just a big, giant disappointment for me as an Orc player, and some of the stuff was good, most of the stuff was bad, though. Oh god, the Blood Elf patch, the Belfie patch. Why? I keep forgetting that was an actual 0.1 patch. That was not a 0.5 patch. That was a literal. That was 6.1. That was stupid.
That existed.
That was stupid. I honestly forget that we had 2 patches in Wars of Draenor. We only had 1 in my eyes. We did not have 2. I hated it. Wars of Draenor, I have a lot of love for it, but most of it's disappointment and hate, and I just wish it was better.
Me too.
Well, for me, it's a little difficult to sum up my thoughts, because it's like I have to mention this in everything. I mostly did PvP. I will say I had a blast with Asheron. I know it was a hot topic, or controversial topic, I should say. Like, some people hated it, some people loved it. I personally absolutely loved it, but that's also because I had a hunter. That was a blast. Was playing on those towers. It felt so cheap, so dirty, and I loved it. But whenever it comes to the story and all that, I stand by it, and I guess you would say every possible story everywhere. 2 big things you can do wrong and screw up a story very badly, for me personally, and that is time travel and alternate dimensions, or alternate universe, I guess I should say. Whenever you do that, you kill the worth of the characters you're telling the story about. And I know we're talking about WoW, but using other examples like Mortal Kombat, like most recently Mortal Kombat 11, which I know nobody really plays Mortal Kombat for story, but I played it, and that was one of the big things I thought about, was like, oh no, person died. Well, main universe person is still around, or this universe person is still around. Oh, they're just going to reboot the universe and that person will be back again. It just doesn't... The character no longer has a story. You kind of kill their identity when you do things like that, and in my opinion, Warlords did that for some of those, like, alternate universe characters. Like you said, Valen died. Like, that would have been a big moment in the main universe, but in Warlords it was like, okay.
Yeah.
I think more people were more upset about Murad dying.
Oh my god.
Than Valen, but that's because Murad was from our universe. We weren't invested in that universe. Why would we be invested in that universe? So again, I stand by that. That's 2 things you can really mess up a storyline with. Of course, time travel has existed in WoW long before that. But it typically still doesn't, like... I can't really think of any examples of them using the time travel thing to cheese, like, characters. Be like, oh, look, this character didn't actually die. They're still around. I can't think of any examples, but there's probably a glaringly obvious one that I'm not thinking of. That being said, garrisons were definitely bad in the sense that they were player housing, but they were not player housing in the way that player housing is enjoyable. See, player housing is enjoyable because it's vanity content, not content. Like, if you make player housing, you take away all the utility out of your garrison, make it completely about decorating it and just looking cool and nice and all that. People are going to experience that content. Like, if you were to take the mission table out of the garrison right now and replace everything in there that had to do with professions, that had to do with PvP and everything, and just replace that instead with, okay, what if instead we devoted those resources to making your garrison, like, you could change locations of your garrison out in the world. But if you can make a Blood Elf themed garrison, a Draenei themed garrison, a Pandaren themed garrison, and you can move it anywhere you like, but there's just no actual gameplay factor with it. I guarantee you people would have loved garrisons, because it's just like transmog. People will go out of their way for vanity content. You don't want to sit there separated from everybody in the game, locked away, playing a mobile game but on your computer. That is where they messed up, if you ask me. But I guess that's really, for the moment, all I can think of to say with Warlords. It was very meh. I had a lot of fun with Ashran, but for a lot of it, just like you said, Box, it felt like filler content.
That's what made me really sad about it. I mean, I'll be honest, and I just want to go back to something. The only alternate universe character I felt was done some justice was the alternate universe Gul'dan, and I thought one of the really interesting plot points with him was him finding more stuff about, like, the main universe Gul'dan, I guess. And one of my favorite lines he has is, "It appears we have a history, Khadgar." But I just like that whole idea of him finding out about his main universe counterpart's fate, and how that carries over into the Legion audio drama when he's talking to Kill Jaden. But I was always, again, and this goes back to the filler content thing, I can't believe it took Grom Hellscream God knows how long to figure out that Garrosh was his son in that expansion. I mean, that was always silly to me.
We never really... I think that's more like... They kind of leave that really vague, that part of the cinematic. It's either he's realizing that's his son, or he's realizing his son's dead. I don't know if the exact focus on that was with Garrosh and Grom. But I wanted to say something about the garrisons. Mm-hmm. I actually liked the building your garrison up, like the quests, like definitely. Gazlo coming in and be like, "Hey, let me help you build your garrison," and the cinematics, and I like the story connections of the garrison personally. But yeah, the whole mobile game and the gameplay, some of the gameplay aspects in the garrisons was really bad. I actually like the garrison invasions, like defend your garrison with your friends.
Yeah,
they were kind of like
fun.
little scenarios. Those are nice. But I hated Ashran.
Yeah, the fun parts of the garrison were like the little dailies you could get to get the mounts, like little things here and there were fun about it. But the stuff that, like you guys were saying, that made it feel like a mobile game was just not fun. Logging on, I'm gonna go into my mine today and get free mine. You know,
well,
stuff
why
like...
do the question that I have for Blizzard today is why do they still have that in the game today? Like
the mission table?
Yeah, like I'm not gonna try to talk about like, you know, BFA or anything here yet, but like that was something brought in by Worlds of Draenor, and for some reason Blizzard still has it in the game despite the outcry for them to take that out.
And I don't think it's particularly well received, even in Legion and BFA. In Legion, I remember the reaction to it was, yeah, it's not as bad as Warlords. That was like, literally the reaction on the beta of it.
I think it would have worked out better if they did it the way they kind of... Again, I'm not trying to talk about the expansion of BFA here, but it's the best way I can think of it. Because in Worlds of Draenor, they kind of have you like level up your bodyguards. Like, these aren't followers. They are followers, but they're bodyguards from the one building. And you get specific quests with that bodyguard. If that was what the follower system was basically just about, I think it would have been more well received about followers. Because, like, for example, like, of course I'm going to say this. You have a quest with Rexar, all right? And Rexar wants to go ahead and he wants to go meet up with Shen and make some beer with him or something. You go with him to go make that beer. And that's the quest. It's like a little mini quest. It's with it, but like it's story developed. Like obviously it'd be something more important with Rexar, but that's just an example that I would have done with the whole follower system in the garrisons.
Are you saying making beer with Chen is not important?
I mean, it is because they're reuniting, but I'm
I'm just Josh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There are, again, like, the garrison could have some potential if it was done the way Kai said it, more cosmetic. And I think people would have gone crazy for it. Like, if you can make it based around certain races and get different tent models.
Yeah.
Like, for example, these Hawaiian tents right in this town.
Heck yeah, I would have loved it to death. I would have done anything to make my garrison look anything like this camp right here.
Exactly.
Like, you know what sucks about that though is because that's the biggest issue with Wards of Draenor is the thing that you guys are wanting. That was originally planned. They were gonna do that, and they scrapped it because Wards of Draenor is the scrapped expansion. It's the they were gonna let you move your garrison around Draenor. They were gonna let you customize it, and that got scrapped. That's again, Wards of Draenor is that expansion. It's supposed to have stuff, and it didn't. And I think that's the reason why it was so bad.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they decided to only do one raid patch, or that they were like, I think our ideas fell flat. Let's focus on Legion and make it.
No, what happened was they had to scrap they told us outright that because they did garrisons, they had to scrap raid content.
Oh, I know. That's what I mean. It's like,
yeah,
it was in development hell, and it kind of sucks.
We were supposed to get Shatrath as a raid. There's supposed to be more development with Grom and why he became redeemed, which I'm guessing we're going to talk about that as the final thing for Wards of Draenor.
I was going to get to that after one more thing. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but one thing, I want to say some good things about Warlords, and that's the raids were very good. I really, really liked Blackrock Foundry and Hellfire Citadel. I thought they were both very well done, and I honestly even better than some of the Legion raids, and I liked the Legion raids a lot. I would say Blackrock Foundry more so. Blackrock Foundry was a really badass raid. Blackhand was one of the warlords that, again, I said this at the time, but I would have liked raids similar to that for the other warlords because they were such notable characters that deserved treatment like that. And Blackhand, oh my god, the model he had in Warlords is badass too.
His Deathwing cosplay.
Exactly. And the thing, like, again, it's just the missed potential that we could talk about. But so we're actually around 50 minutes right now, so I'd like to, I guess we'll talk about Grom Hellscream. Personally, I just think he was a character with wasted potential, even to this day when they bring him back in BFA, only to essentially, we don't know he's dead, but we can only assume he's dead. It was just waste. He didn't have any development. His redemption, well, you know, obviously that's in his character. I would have liked some more build up to it because the Draenor is free thing is a giant meme now.
Oh god. God.
I meme about it all the time still, but I think that's one of the first things I said to you, Skull, when we first started talking on Twitter. But yeah, he was a disappointing character, and yeah, I don't know. I would have liked to see more characters. Like Vol'jin was in Warlords, but he didn't do much. Like just
oh no.
We could talk about. We'll talk about that when we get to Legion. But it's
that's gonna be a tangent. That's gonna be a lovely tangent.
It's Warlords, in my opinion, and I'll end my thoughts right here, and then I'll let you guys do your final thoughts of Warlords. It was a disappointment.
Yeah. For the most part, yeah, definitely. I kept thinking of things like, oh, they could have done this with that. They could have done that with this, and it would have, in my opinion, been so much better. But not to pat myself on the back here, because I'll break my arm. But other MMOs seem to be doing a lot of those things that I mentioned. Like, I know it's a bit of a demonized thing, but let's just face it, vanity sells. Like, people like that stuff. They like to get behind making your character look cool, or having a cool home, having, you know, getting mounts and transmogs and stuff like that. That's the stuff that people really like.
Right.
I just I can't. I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around how the garrisons turned out, and I think if they were to just flat out say, hey, next expansion, player housing, bam, I think that'd be a big selling point right there. But only if they don't make them seem like garrisons. Like if they're not like, and your house comes with a mission table where you can, do these missions and stuff, and now you can use it on your mobile device, and
You can order pizza from this place.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, great, wonderful, you ruined it. Like just make it a cosmetic thing, and I promise you, people will eat it up. In fact, I would have been like, okay, now on your garrison, you can buy like a $10 skin for your garrison and make it, Huojin themed or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's all about the money, which of course that makes sense. I mean, if you're a company, you're all about the money. You can do it different ways.
I would pay
like
for
you can
that.
incorporate that in content without it affecting like the competitive atmosphere. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Just keep it cosmetic.
Tangent. I apologize. We were talking about Grom.
No, you're good. This is related
Yeah.
to Warlords. I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, but as for Grom, in truth, I didn't think much about it at the time. I guess whenever I was thinking of the Iron Horde, I didn't think too much about Grom. I was thinking a bit more, even though he was not even related to the Iron Horde, Gul'dan at the time.
Right.
But like with Grom at the end, yeah, it did feel weird. It's like Draenor is free. Like, yeah, why are those Draenei celebrating with you? Why aren't they like putting you down, and, like, killing you?
I mean, they do later.
Yeah, spoilers.
Bum
Not really
bum bum bum.
Yeah. But it's like that could have been, and imagine if they did that at the time, like how much more interesting the Lightforge storyline might have been.
Oh no,
If they'd have alluded to something like that in Warlords, rather, they could have had Yrah like glare at him.
Yeah,
and be
even
like,
a bit of
"Not all
dialogue
is
or
forgiven."
something.
that could have been I honestly like.
Very interesting.
I like I would have thought it would have been a little bit more interesting if they did that, but like what I would have done is like, and since I guess it's my turn now to talk about Grom, so I'll get into what I think that they should done with that whole routine with Yrel and the foreshadowing of Yrel going forward with BFA and whatnot. But with Grom, again, it's those damn missing pieces that they scrapped from the expansion that was going to fulfill his whole story. I really think that we should have had that Shattrath patch instead of the stupid selfie patch. Fudge that.
My gosh.
Oh my
It would
god.
have been so good.
Why I don't even need a selfie. Why did you add that in, Blizzard? And people meme it the Belfie patch because Blood Elves got their models in that patch too. Put that away. Put that away.
Oh no.
No. That's a cursed object.
It's a
I have to
cursed
do something.
object.
Oh god. Oh my god. I don't know why they added that in. Like, oh god.
I won't
But,
lie, I use it sometimes, but it's a lot.
I use it sometimes too, but I use it unironically. Ironically. Bleh. But with
Confirm
Grom,
on
I
stream.
think that what I would have done, and like I was gonna talk about this too for Warlords again. I think they did the one thing I think they did a really good job with Warlords is with Thrall, with showing him what his father was like and showing what the Frostwolves were like, because that's something Thrall never got to really see. I think that if they focused more on Thrall in Warlords, and I know that seems weird because the biggest complaint for most people with Thrall is they focus too much on him, but I think they should have focused more on Thrall on Horde's side, on Draenor, kind of have him be the eyes and ears of reflecting on what Draenor is. And, I think that a lot of the story with, again, I feel like we're referencing BFA too much here, but whatever. With his whole thing about Outlands, I think that could have been also Draenor for him, really. That Draenor would be a perfect home for him to stay at, with his family still alive. The Draenei and the Orcs seem to be getting along a lot better now. Like, you could have had that with Thrall, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they did Outlands instead, but they could have done that with Thrall, I guess. But, I don't know. Like, with Grom, I don't hate him. I just wish that they focused more on that arc. I wish they focused on his regret with the Draenei. Kind of like with Sarfang. You have, like, Sarfang. He clearly butchered the Draenei, but he had the Demon Blood to rely on. With Grom, he had Garrosh lying to his face. So you kind of have to have that, that story with him, I guess. But with Yrel, what I would have done is at the end cinematic, you have Yrel say to Grom, "You're not celebrating anything, Butcher. You've slaughtered all of us, or all these Draenei," and kind of have Duratan step in. You go kind of like, again, if they want to foreshadow that whole thing with BFA of why Duratan died, you could have Duratan step in and go, he will atone for his sins by being alive or whatever. Like they could have done something like that. I think, like, just focus on the Duratan and Grom relationship at the end, or Thrall and Grom. Like Thrall and Grom were like brothers in Warcraft 3.
I wanted to see an interaction between the two of them at some
Yeah.
point. Like, I always thought he was gonna fill him in on Garrosh at some point too.
You had that stare at the very beginning of the of Wards of Draenor between Thrall and Grom, where Thrall's glaring up at Grom, where it's kind of like a confused look almost at the same time. But I wish they focused on that. That's what I wanted when they in BFA, when they announced that Grom was still alive and active in the alternate timeline, and then we got what we got in that whole scenario, sadly.
So, I know we could do a whole podcast on Warlords, what went wrong. What
We
think went
could.
wrong.
It was
But
bad.
To put it bluntly, and I'm gonna end Warlords on this because we're at 55 minutes and we got Legion to cover still. And I'm just gonna back up, take my seat again. Okay. To put it bluntly, Warlords of Draenor was a lot of missed opportunity, and unfortunately, to this day, it remains my least favorite expansion. That being said, and I want to just say something, even a bad WoW expansion is still a good time for me. Like, I definitely got my money's worth out of it, but it's just a shame. It could have been so much more, and I know it's a broken record topic, but we'll see. Maybe someday we'll get some more lore related when they get into the Light and Void stuff more.
Time for me to say my piece on where I would put Warlords. I would put it in front of Burning Crusade. Time to make people mad. Time to make people mad.
You have just launched a war.
I have launched a war. Skull
You
Shorties
set
is
the
gonna.
world on fire.
I like Warlords of Draenor more than Burning Crusade. I have upset so many people.
Yeah, here it comes. Oh man, the Legion envy the fire you just set, man.
Box, I'm sorry if all the people unsubscribe from your channel.
It's all good.
Oh man.
You know what? I'll blame Jackie. No, just kidding.
You're not gonna blame me. You're gonna blame your girlfriend.
If you blame Jackie, who are we gonna have the scapegoat with Sylvanas?
That's true. That's true.
We still need a Sylvanas scapegoat here.
We can always have another podcast on explaining why Skull Shorties put Wards of Draenor in front of Burning Crusade.
Kun-Lai Campfire, Skull Shorties.
It's very small. It's very minor. Like, to be honest. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Definitely.
Oh man, it's so Kai. Where would you put it?
Believe it or not, I actually had more fun with Warlords than I did with Kata, to be truthful.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
I know it's a little strange, but not much. Like, both of those expansions, I definitely unsubbed for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess I just aesthetically enjoyed Warlords more than Kata, which is strange because I love elements. That's what I'm all about. I love shamans, which I know is strange because I'm standing here on a warrior, but like shamanism, the elements, that's my thing. I've always loved that kind of thing. Whooshing.
I mean, Draenor had that, so it makes sense why you liked it more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kata was supposed to be all about that stuff, but like, I guess Kata just didn't feel fun for me because it's like, yeah, there was the PvP and all that. I don't know. It just didn't quite feel as fun. At least with Warlords, even if the story was kind of crap, I did enjoy. Like, I know you hated Ashran, but I did personally enjoy Ashran. I still had the RP community.
I hate it because Mists of Pandaria ends with the faction war being ended, and Ashran opens up with, "Hey, let's fight over a Titan artifact."
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, let's. I can't get into Vol'jin right now, but yeah.
You know what,
that
Kai?
was a big no-no.
I'm gonna let you get right into Vol'jin right now.
Lead into Legion.
We're gonna
with
go
Vol'jin?
right into Legion, and we're gonna
Oh,
start
boy.
with our former war chief Vol'jin and how he got cheated out of a great storyline after Mop. I loved Vol'jin, man. He was probably one of my favorite Horde leaders, if not
He
my
was
favorite.
mine, yeah.
And
He was mine. Yeah.
he just felt so robbed. I was in the beta. There was rumors of him just going into hiding, and I was like, okay, well at least he's not dead. And then
Yeah.
they decided to axe him, and that is such a letdown for me, man. I'm glad he's around still, but the whole spirit thing just feels kind of not right. I just feel like he still got cheated, and then Sylvanas during Legion wasn't like she is now, so I wasn't as upset about it, but I was hurt, like, by the storyline. I hate to say that. Like, I really liked following Vol'jin in the story. It just felt so right, and it felt like the Horde was on that right track again. I really liked a moment in I believe it was War Crimes where he writes to Jaina, like saying like the Horde basically isn't Garrosh, but he was just such a likable character, and I don't know if they wanted us to have that same heartbreak feeling that we got for Varian, but the way it was done just did not do it. And every time I watch that cinematic, I'm like, please, why?
I mean, it was a great lead-in and why we got BFA, but oh boy, with Legion, all right, so why, like, they have this build up this nice little relationship with Thrall and Vol'jin, and Thrall's like, I'm passing leadership over to you, Vol'jin. You're gonna do us proud. And like at the very beginning of the Broken Shore, Thrall's even like Vol'jin's like, I'm not used to you calling me war chief at all yet.
Oh, I loved that.
And
I loved that.
I think about, again, one of my favorite characters is Thrall. Like, I like Vol'jin, but Thrall is my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude's best friends are just all dead. Like, the guy only, I think, has Rexar left, really. Like, Karen's dead, Vol'jin's dead, but it's a ghost. He has Saurfang and Eitrigg, I guess, but I don't really view them as the greatest of friends compared to, Vol'jin and Karen. They were his brothers. Like, that's how he viewed them, and they're both dead. And, like, Varian dies like a badass death. He's in the HD cinematic. He's in the Broken Shore cinematic, kicking ass and taking names. What does Vol'jin do? Looks around, gets stabbed. Then his funeral cinematic wasn't that bad. I didn't mind that, but it's the fact that he did die is what what made me upset. BFA kind of changes my perspective, but during Legion, I was pissed. I was really angry about Vol'jin's death, and we're gonna. There's a reason why Legion slowly being pulled down from my ranks originally, because the more I think about it, the more angry I get over it.
Legion, from a story perspective, there's a lot I liked about it. I liked the whole tone of the expansion, with essentially the world having to come together to literally defeat the threat we've been worrying about for years. And honestly, just fighting the Legion again was really cool.
Legion was still good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're gonna talk about all about Legion a lot more, I think, here, because we're reaching near the end of the video. But I don't know, like Legion, I liked a lot of Legion, but how the Horde was treated is one of the big reasons why it's slowly becoming not as much as I liked it when it was current content, I guess, because when I look at it more, like, I understand why they treated Legion more about the classes, but again, like, when we get more into it, basically the way I view it is they have these neutral characters that are Alliance characters mostly, and they're represented as neutral though for both sides, but there's no Horde characters that are neutral that are represented for both sides. Not really. I think only Liadrin is the only character that Horde gets, and she's barely even shown.
And then she's now in a Warfront, but another topic.
One thing I guess I'd like to start with, like, in terms of Legion, is I actually feel Legion had the best setup of any expansion in terms of, like, wow factor with the invasions, the Broken Shore event, the
Oh,
Demon
yeah.
Hunters, even Warlord's ending with Gul'dan escaping. It had that same Garrosh vibe, and the audio drama with Khadgar and Gul'dan at the Tomb of Sargeras was really badass. And again, just the impact and that shock value we got at the time. Not necessarily with Vol'jin, but I'm talking about with Varian. Legion, if there's one thing I can really compliment it on compared to other expansions, and this is something that a lot of people didn't like per se, that I kind of did like at the time, was not the whole Chosen One thing, but you did definitely feel like you were a part of something really big that was going on in the world, and that it was either do or die at this point. I liked that it brought back a lot of minor characters that we might not have seen, otherwise. I thought it was cool that some storylines got tied up, like Koltyra Deathweaver with the Death Knight Order Hall, and just little things like that. Some Order Halls I felt were better than the others. I did feel the Warrior one was a little weak compared to some of the other ones that I played. My favorite Order Hall storyline, that's a tough one for me. I could get into a lot of them. I would say aesthetically I like the Monk one because it's the Wandering Isle, but storyline, I think I enjoyed the Death Knights the most, just because it was very exciting at the time, and there's a lot of interesting lore and discussion around it with the Horsemen, and again, just a follow-up from them from Wrath felt really good. Some of the characters in Legion I felt weren't treated well, but that's a whole nother story. I really like the introduction to the allied races that we got in BFA, such as the High Mountain Tauren and the Nightborn, and I really liked how they carry in the Lightforge, and I really like, again, how they carry that over into the next expansion. Khadgar, in my opinion, is a much better character for getting us to point A to point B than Magni. Magni, to me, with Champion, I can't do a dwarf voice, forgive me, is kind of just boring. But Khadgar had a good personality to him, and he was a character that the whole time through Legion, I kept saying to Jackie, they better not kill this guy off. I like him too much.
That'd be heartbreaking.
I hope he comes back next expansion, man, but that's a whole nother story. But...
I remember back in when I'll say my piece when I get them allowed, but this is reference to Khadgar. But I remember when people were speculating on who the final boss was. Some people said that they're gonna do what they did with Medivh with Khadgar, where like Sargeras would possess Khadgar, and Khadgar would be like demon mage boss, basically.
Are
like,
you just trying to break my heart?
That's what people were speculating on. It never happened, obviously, but it's interesting, I guess.
I guess to go back a little bit, I really liked the way that the story was presented in Legion, and I actually think it was, believe it or not, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, I thought the leveling in Legion was better than Battle for Azeroth, the way it was done. I love the way that like Khadgar interacted with you when you'd start one of the Broken Isles chains, where he's like, the only way we're gonna survive on that mountain is if we make allies, and just like little quips like that. Greetings, champion, Azuna awaits. Like little, I don't know, it just had this really cool vibe to it that I can't explain. And on top of that, it had so much replay value with the order halls, and that's something I really, really appreciate. Like leveling for, I'm not trying to trash on BFA, believe me, because I know we've talked about it before. I like BFA, but I don't have that same replay value on my alts that I did in Legion. In Legion, it felt like a new, fresh experience every time I leveled a character. Aside from the zones, obviously, I was excited to go through the different order halls. I actually never got a chance to play the Rogue one until Legion, or BFA, and it was really, really good. But again, that's the thing, like, it always felt like it had something new to offer, and I can really, really appreciate that.
The thing with Legion with me is they did so many things right and so many things wrong. And I'm worried that, well, the things it did wrong for me are more the trends it's gonna set in in several areas. For one, the sin that they used with Vol'jin, like you said earlier, like there's certain wrongs you can do about a character, and I would say those wrongs almost have tiers of their own. Like you can kill off a character before their story is told. You can kill off a character who has a great story and it's time to kill them off, and then there's a character whose story's just beginning. I would say the last one's the worst time to kill a character off, especially whenever it feels like it's less it was less about the shock value and more because you have to jump on to this next story. With Varian, I would say that's a low tier, I guess you would say, sin. It's like, oh no, the character died. But Varian had a lot of development. He had a lot of backstory and a lot of history with the game. Vol'jin it felt like the rebellion was the start of Vol'jin's story because he didn't have much story up until that, really. We're still like trying to kind of piece together who he even was and if his sons are even canon.
As far as I know, they are. We just don't know who the other two are. We just know one of them is.
Yeah, it's just it felt like it was such a wrong thing to do by killing him after, like, it's like, all right, now his story begins in a new chapter for the Horde.
It felt really forced. Like,
yes,
Varian. It's time for the two leaders of the factions to die, and like, why? What? Like, it made no sense. Both have to? Like, I love Thrall. I love him like with all my passion.
That
but like,
sense, yeah.
If they killed Thrall off with Varian, and like kill him in a badass way though, don't kill him like you killed Vol'jin off. That'd piss people off too.
Yeah,
so many.
Like a final stand thing with them both or something.
Yeah, you could have had like a Thrall and Thrall and Varian stand by stand, fighting side by side, and Thrall sacrificing himself so that the Horde can get away, and Varian vice versa, and and then you could, with Thrall's death, you could have this division with the Horde, with like Sylvanas being like, Vol'jin's terrible, he can't lead, look what happened to Thrall, and Thrall, this would be like Vol'jin's way of like proving himself to the Horde. Basically.
Yeah, there's so many different awesome ways they could have done it. However, I do understand that it's like, you have the issue of time, and you have to kind of go with shock value. I understand that whole bit, but it did set other trends I heavily disliked. I mean, even apart from Warlords, where I say I hate the whole alternate universe thing.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to a story, I would say another thing Legion did that I really didn't like is the artifact thing. Whenever you stop becoming the obscure character and you start becoming a central figure whose identity has to be so vague whenever you're looking at the grand story of WoW. Like, if you're playing the central character in an MMO, the MMO from the outside looking in, like, what's your story? It's all about you, but you don't really align that with anything. I guess it's difficult to explain. The only actual example I can think of is if somebody played like the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which I know that's a bit of a out there kind of example to compare it to, but like in Oblivion, you're not I guess you would say, the chosen one of that game. You're helping the chosen guy, who is Martin Septim. And it's, I don't know, I guess what I mean is I much prefer being the obscure adventurer to the great champion of Azeroth and stuff like that. I like more trying to become something great rather than, you're the chosen one, you have the artifact of power in the heart of Azeroth, and you're wonderful and you're awesome and you're going to do everything right.
Yeah.
I think it was fun for one expansion. I don't think they should do it again, though.
They're gonna keep doing it though, which is, I feel like, I don't want to talk about BFA too much here, but like, I feel like BFA kind of took Legion and Mists of Pandaria together and combined them two, of what the character represents now. But yeah, with Legion, I really didn't like being the leader of my class order hall. I didn't like having a weapon that should belong to a lore character and not me. Especially with Thrall and the Doomhammer. It feels incredibly wrong for us to wield the Doomhammer. I get what they're going for, but I didn't feel comfortable with it.
I want Thrall to get it back.
I was perfectly fine with like new weapons like Xalatath and Titan Strike, weapons we never heard of before, but like weapons that are like really iconic and like memorable, like Frostmourne and Ashbringer and Doomhammer and so forth. Yeah, I didn't like that with those weapons.
I think as a feature, artifacts are really fun though at the time.
Oh, I loved the cosmetic feature and some of the story features, but
yeah, that. So I agree with that though. Like, it was kind of weird having everyone run around with like the most legendary weapon. You know.
I'm the wielder of Ash Springer. No, I am.
No.
No, I am.
Now, just because this has been going on for a little while, I'd like to touch upon Suramar as an endgame zone.
Oh, rip! I didn't get to say my thoughts.
Oh, I'm sorry, Skull. Go ahead, actually.
I've just been interrupting people this whole time. I was just gonna say that Legion did a really good job at like scale scope. Like the world did feel like it was getting invaded by the Legion. They did a really good job with that in the order halls and like the pre-events and whatnot. I'm trying to think what else I was gonna say. It's been a while since I was thinking. I think that's really it. I guess there's a lot that I liked about Legion. There's the Velen story. There's the return of Illidan. I really didn't like the fact that Rathian wasn't even mentioned really, and they scrapped him. That was really bad of them to do that at the beginning.
We should do a podcast on just Rathian at some point.
We should. We really should with certain things coming up now.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Horde didn't feel like it was really involved. One of my favorite order halls was probably like the Hunter order hall felt like trash. Honestly, we had Hakar, not the Soul Flare, but Hakar the Houndmaster as our main baddie, and it didn't feel that impactful. And we had Rexar as a follower. That was nice, but that wasn't enough. But my favorite order hall campaign was probably the Death Knight, just because we got Bolvar's return and the Scourge's return, and it seems pretty impactful to today. So.
Shaman. I love the Shaman one. Oh,
that was a good one too. Yeah.
And just one quick thing I want to add. I hate to say this, Skull. I have to disagree heavily about the impact of the Legion. I did not think they impacted the world nearly as much as it should have. Because whenever I thought of the Legion before the expansion Legion, I thought of like this eternal, amazingly gigantic army that we just really are supposed to feel like we have no chance against. But Legion felt more like we were invading them. Like, Sylvanas did more damage to the world in the BFA pre-patch than the Legion really did.
I mean, that's fair. Like, if I compare the Scourge to the Legion, the Scourge felt more impactful.
Yeah.
Sylvanas feels more impactful, but like, I felt like the world was being invaded. Basically, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying like it felt. I'm not saying like the scale was massive as it could have been. I think they could have done better. Definitely.
Right.
But like I did feel like we won more than they lost, really. Like the Broken Shore was the only loss we really had. And I guess to be fair, I think that's maybe the only loss we also had Ysera, which was another tragedy that made me cry an ocean of tears. There's a reason why the artifact was the tear of a loon, I'm willing to bet. But I think they could have done a better job with that, but I do think that they did a really good job with some of the scale, I guess.
So
yeah, I get what you mean.
I stand somewhere in the middle of both of you on that. I really, really liked the tone of Legion. I really liked how every time you stepped out into a zone, you just see that portal from the Tomb of Sargeras looming in the distance. I really, really like the tone of the expansion. Where I agree with Kai, it's more lasting impacts in the storyline. Although I will say Sargeras stabbing the planet was pretty damn huge, but there should have just been maybe one more big invasion that was like the Broken Shore in the middle of it. I mean, the Exodar was big, but you kind of forget about it afterwards, you know what I mean? So something that kind of changed Azeroth even, again, throughout it would have been pretty badass. Maybe in patch 8.2, which we'll get to in a little bit, I promise, because that's probably going to be the big topic. But the thing I'd like to get to next is two things that I really, really liked about Legion. The alternate Gul'dan and Elisand. I really, really liked these two characters. I really enjoyed Saramar's storyline of the Nightborn, and I can't really say anything bad about like them carrying over. I'm really happy that they're still involved in the storyline. I love First Arcanist Thalyssra a lot. Again, love the fact she's in 8.2, but Damn, Elisand and Gul'dan. I like that Elisand actually ends up helping us fight the alternate Gul'dan. And the cool thing about the alternate Gul'dan is you still see him pop up every so often, like if you play a Warlock, he's in the Artifact quest. But I actually like that he just did that thing where he still kind of just is doing something in the background at all points. Like, I forget what he did, but I believe he had to go to Helya to get something for Illidan's Husk, if I remember. And the fact that he has the Husk of Illidan is pretty crazy.
He trapped Illidan's soul in Helheim.
And
Like, he made a deal with Helya. So, like, Gul'dan was, like, basically involved. He felt like he felt more like the villain of the expansion than anyone, really, which is...
And that's what exactly.
I feel like they could have done a better job with other characters being more represented, like Sargeras or Kil'jaeden, but Gul'dan felt like the sole villain. So, like, when 7.1 was over and you kill Gul'dan, it's like, okay, is the expansion over now? Oh, we're still doing this. Okay.
Gul'dan was so, in my opinion, I thought he was a very well done character, and I love the message at the end where he's the one that, like, when he says the variant that he's gonna die for nothing. Gul'dan's the one that literally exists for nothing when you really think about it. Like, it's poetic justice, and I liked it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I think we can agree Legion had a pretty good launch. Now let's get to 7.2. So 7.2, I guess I'll start first since I brought it up. It has the Warlord syndrome of a lot of missed opportunity. I like the Order Hall mounts. I like the continuation of the Order Hall storylines. And the raid itself was good, I thought. And I like Kil'jaeden's fight where you're fighting him on a spaceship to Argus. I thought that was really cool. Mechanically, not so much, but the theme of the fight was really cool. The Broken Shore, however, and the armies of the Legion fall. The opening cutscene's awesome, where Kil'jaeden's kind of arguing with Sargeras about all they have to show for everything is failure. And I think this is where the ball got dropped, and that was... Why make the Broken Shore a bunch of grindy missions week after week, then add some sort of storyline? I've made videos on this. I said that if they redeemed Garrosh and made him a monk, have him have a storyline in 8.2 and kill him off there just so there's something. I mean, even... Hell, if they wanted...
7.2.
Oh, 7.2, I'm sorry. And even if they wanted to have Vol'jin live past the initial patch and maybe kill him off, have 7.2 be that point. Have him do something against Kil'jaeden. Have Kil'jaeden be involved as a deceiver, for Christ's sake. I mean, you have a character that big that's caused so much shit in World of Warcraft. The Lich King, Gul'dan, basically this whole expansion, the Draenei. And it just seems really lackluster that it's just... He didn't really do anything. You barely saw him. He launched a few invasions on the Broken Isles, and that's about it. It's like... That's kind of lame when you think about it. And if Argus, I had no idea we were really going to go to Argus at some point during Legion. However, I would have assumed Kil'jaeden could have been potentially the last boss of that expansion with how big of a character he was. I mean, that's just my take on it. I think a lot of players were very disappointed and let down by this patch. It could have been a lot more. Did I not have fun during that patch? No, I actually still had quite a good time with it because Legion, again, had so much to offer. The Mage Towers were a great addition during this patch, but again, I just see that as a big, big missed opportunity, and I think if that was done right, I think Legion could have potentially been considered one of the greatest expansions, or the greatest expansion, had they done that bit right. Just my take.
Yeah, overall it was. I definitely had fun with Legion. It was up there with one of my favorites.
Same
but
here.
It's just those few things I didn't like. I'm glad that BFA sort of turned around the theme of we're the main character. Like, I kind of feel Obscurigan, which again I kind of like. But except for the Heart of Azeroth bit, but still it's. Again, it just didn't feel... The Legion didn't feel very impactful in the end. I didn't feel that sense of dread I was hoping to. I wanted there to be a lot... I wanted to actually fear losing stuff in WoW.
Right.
I wanted to be like, who's gonna die next? What's gonna happen next? Like what kind of tragedies are gonna happen? What city might we lose next? The Legion, it just did not feel nearly as again, impactful, I guess. There's another word I was looking for, but impactful, I guess, is the best thing I can think of for the moment. But yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say. With 7.2 or 7.2 specifically, I actually liked the Armies of Legion Fall bit. I do think the time gating was a bit meh.
Oh, I mean, I sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I like the Armies of Legion Fall and the premise of it and like the start of it. I just think the middle piece was what was missing from it.
Yeah. And of course Suramar was fantastic, I think. Like, of course it was annoying kind of playing through it in some points, but overall, like, the story and the pacing, really, like, they did a fantastic job on it, and they could really use that as a template for more storytelling, to be honest.
I agree. I was surprised there wasn't a Suramar-like zone in BFA.
Yeah. Would have been pretty cool. I guess that's kind of what Najatar and Mechagon were supposed to be, but I don't know.
The train's coming. Oh boy, the anger's coming about this one.
Well, can I ask this for the viewers? Are you pointing at your screen right now?
No, but I took my shirt off, so...
Wow. It's real, man.
That's mostly because I'm sweaty. I turned my air conditioner off for boxing in this campfire, so yeah, there's... I hate 7.2 with a burning passion. I don't know how this happened, but the whole thing about Legion is it's my third favorite right now. I mean, it's probably gonna get beat by BFA right now, unless BFA has a really bad ending somehow. But right now, what's holding Legion down so much is 7.2. I really don't like what they do with 7.2. They have so much premise with a place called the Tomb of Sargeras, because the Tomb of Sargeras in Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne was really important. It was really imperative to the story. It's still imperative to the story, and it did not feel impactful. It did not feel like it was supposed to. This was the place that Varian Rin died. This is the place where Vol'jin died. Well, Vol'jin died in Orgrimmar, but still, he fell. He got injured in the Broken Shore, which led to his death. But what the hell happened? Like, you have Kil'jaeden, who is a very pivotal villain in WoW. He created the Lich King. He made the orcs war with the Draenei and had them turn green and be all corrupted. He used Illidan, I believe, to do a lot of things. I don't recall everything, but he had Illidan basically do the entirety of the Frozen Throne. The entire campaign is focused on Kil'jaeden and Illidan, and you have all these characters who would really work out well to oppose Kil'jaeden and interact with Kil'jaeden, and you really only have that happen in the raid. You don't have it happen outside the raid. And what you do is the class order halls, in my opinion, the continuation of the campaigns with the new followers, I didn't like most of them. I really didn't like most of them. The Hunter one, we had some random Nightborn chick. The Pandaren, we had some random Pandaren woman. The Paladins got like a ghost of a night elf, apparently. I don't even remember most of them.
I got E-Trade.
The E-Trade was fine, but he wasn't really involved in the quest as far as I remember. So, like, he was kind of involved, but not enough. But I mean, for Peach's sake, we got Magatha as the Shaman Order Hall follower, and I hate Magatha.
That felt gross. That felt disgusting.
That felt disgusting and sickening, and
I was like, how can I kill you? How can I get you killed?
And they throw the excuse out there at you, like, we gotta keep your enemies closer. You gotta make sure that they aren't scheming anything. you have a Tauren that like goes, you can't be serious basically, and you basically have what's his name, the one broken shaman, what's his name? I don't remember his name. He's the broken
Nabundo?
shaman.
Nobundo?
Namundo, thank you. He basically calms down the one Tauren from trying to kill Magatha, which honestly he should have let him.
Yeah.
I don't. Everything about 7.2 makes me angry. I liked the Mage Tower. That's like about it. And the raid was okay, I guess. But they had a chance to do a really cool storyline with the Broken Shore, and they really messed up. And instead, they let you collect chests and kill rares and kill 50 demons in a different zone. Like, and that's the story campaign. They present it as the story campaign. And this is so you can get flying. This is so you can get your class mount. Not worth it. It was bad. I like the class mount storylines. I like some of the follower storylines, but it wasn't enough. And I hate 7.2 more than Mords of Draenor, more than Burning Crusade. If we were talking about patches here, 7.2 would be at the bottom for me. I really did not like it for a lot of reasons, but it also had some good stuff, I guess, but it wasn't enough. I liked Illidan, but...
So, let's get on some brighter news than 7.2 because we're at an hour and a half right now. 7.3. 7.3 I thought was a very good finale for Legion. I thought the final boss being a Titan was pretty cool. I liked the 3 Argus zones, and I actually really liked the soundtrack from this patch. Having Turalyon and Illyria be back in the storyline was also pretty badass, and Velen and Illidan's interactions were really, really cool in the last patch. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed Illidan staying behind at the end, and the ending of Antorus was, in my opinion, a pretty good game changer and something to get us excited for the next expansion pack. What I didn't like about 7.3 was there wasn't enough notable Legion commanders in the last raid. I know we've all talked about that before off camera, but I thought it told a pretty good storyline and gave us some nice character development for Illyria Windrunner in particular. What do you guys think about that? I also thought gameplay-wise Argus was very fun.
In truth, with me, it didn't leave very many lasting impressions. I've never really been too crazy about the light and stuff, like that whole storyline, I guess. I understand the significance of Argus itself, but it did feel like the game is, I don't know, like, I understand, like, engineering and things like that already exist in the game, but, like, interstellar travel was just something kind of crazy. I don't know, it just felt very strange to me. Overall, I enjoyed it. Gameplay-wise, it was very fun. Aesthetically, it was pretty awesome. Still too much green.
I don't want to interrupt you, but one really cool moment for Argus I thought was the Tomb of Sargeras ending was one of my favorite cinematics in Legion. Sorry, with Argus in the skybox, I really liked
that was
that.
Oh yeah.
The Argus in the sky was really brilliant. I will say that.
Yeah,
But that was the end of 7.2. I shouldn't be. The very end of 7.2 was again there was a lot of good stuff in 7.2. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but the cinematics are always good, and the music's usually always good.
Yeah. So yeah, the Argus thing was obviously, or not Argus, Sargeras, like being, I don't know, the looming threat was, again, it just, I can't say it enough, it just felt kind of anticlimactic and overall, except for like the very end of the expansion, like where he's trying to go after the planet itself, like that felt, that was pretty cool, but
Seeing
overall,
Sargeras,
it just didn't quite, I don't know, it didn't feel quite as suspenseful as I was hoping.
It didn't do it for you a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I expected more, but I don't. Then again, in practice, I don't know how they could have made it how I would have liked it to be. Again, I just think it was too safe. There was a bit too much of us being the chosen one, and just way too much going right for us. It was supposed to be apocalyptic, you know. This is a legion, this is the infinite army, you know, and it just too much went right. I was wondering what we're gonna lose next, and what's, you know, what kind of impact it's gonna have, and that's all I could think of the entire time. And I guess nothing really did until the Silithus thing, but even that was not very much, to be honest.
7-2 should have had the loss, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd argue that, I don't know. My main argument is we lost a lot at the beginning of Legion, and I don't think I would have wanted any more loss after that. Is my take on that, I guess. Like, it depends on what we're losing, really. But like, I don't know. Like, for the Alliance almost never loses characters, but the Horde does. So like, when the Alliance loses a city, you know, they freak out usually, but usually nobody really dies in the city. That's very relevant. It's usually citizens that the only time was really Theramore, where they lost Ronan and Pain and the gnome that Jaina taught.
Yeah.
But there were those characters. But like, I don't know. I think that there's a time and a place for when there should be loss, and I think that at the very end of an expansion, maybe not. I don't know. That's my take on with loss with Argus.
I would say, like, with box, like 7.2 or even 7.1 would have been a very good time for something like that. See, I know I'm speaking a lot from personal experience, but again, that's, I guess, the only way I can. Entering Legion, I was of the perspective of expecting the Legion to be not only how I've read in lore, but for me personally, a lot of the lens that I saw the potential of Legion being was the vision of, you know, the vision that Kilrog showed you in Warlords, which I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, yeah. I know it was just a raid mechanic, but it kind of shows you that alternate universe thing where you're making your last stand with Khadgar in either Stormwind or the Undercity, depending on your faction. See, that was the kind of apocalyptic but epic kind of thing I guess I thought the Legion was going to be all about. Like, I thought it was going to be us fighting against the odds, truly. See, that's the reason why I guess it felt like it was kind of anticlimactic, because I didn't see that big climax where it genuinely felt like we were fighting an uphill battle, but we were just fighting tooth and nail for small victories like I was expecting. But again, those were expectations. That was just, at the time, everything I had read about the Legion, the scope of the Legion was massive and just overwhelmingly large, and mortals die, the Legion doesn't die, and then you've got Sargeras behind it all, the Titans are dead, and it's like all of that was completely flipped around. It just didn't feel suspenseful.
I guess that's fair. I don't know.
Legion is a weird expansion. I'm probably gonna wind things down because we've been going on for about an hour and 40 minutes. Overall, Legion, I would rank it as my third favorite expansion. However, I think as the years go on, there's stuff that's not gonna age well for me, but I can't deny the amount of fun I had playing through it and then the beginning of it. It was a well-made expansion, and I think there's stuff from it I'm surprised didn't make its way into BFA, but that'll be when we get into a review at the end of Battle for Azeroth for the third part of this. Overall, though, like I said, I'd put it right behind Mists of Pandaria. I have a lot of good memories of Legion, particularly from the last patch when everything was out, and just the storyline, being excited about it. I myself enjoyed a lot of the characters in it. I agree with Skull where there wasn't enough Horde representation in the storyline, but I just enjoyed seeing all our favorite faces out, at least in some way, shape, or form, to assist in the invasion, or the assist in defending from the Legion invasion. And the Broken Isles just had a really epic feel to it that I can't really rub off, that I haven't gotten from any expansions yet, really. Well, no, that's not true. I apologize. I just thought it had a really epic feel to it, the continent that gave me, I would say, like, vibes of, like, Pandaria and Northrend that I really liked.
You want to let me say my thing on 7.3?
Oh, yeah. Say it
You
all.
monster.
Oh.
Always letting you and Kai talk, but never letting me talk about
I am
mine.
so bad
Pandaren
about
Master
doing
Race.
this.
There's a racial favoritism in this podcast, and you guys need to get this video dislike bombed.
No.
It's the Hosian way, man. You gotta act. You gotta speak. Like, speak. Yeah, that's the way
I'm letting you guys speak.
You gotta
Uh,
learn. You
got a
gotta,
Kanye in here.
Oh god damn it.
you gotta interrupt us to get things done.
Yeah, true. That's fair. I was just gonna say I really liked Illidan and Velen in 7.3. I loved Illidan's moment of silencing Zero, because I did not like Zero one bit, and I was really happy when Illidan blasted her.
Mhm.
I really liked the Makari zone with it looked really beautiful. It was probably the nicest area on Argus.
Yes.
And the the Sargeras moment being revealed was amazing. Probably the best part. I like seeing the Titans in their full glory, but there's just something about seeing Sargeras was far more impactful because we never saw him at that point in the game. Illidan saying his farewell to Velen, and Velen finally getting that respite of no more of the Legion. That was really nice. And
Oh, I love that, the breath he takes at the end.
oh yeah, he finally gets to just relax, which is, I think, he is well deserving of Velen. The whole story arc between Velen and Illidan was just really nice in Legion and on Argus in general. My only complaint really about Argus was the lack thereof of notable demons throughout the years, despite them. It would make a lot of sense to have some demons that we fought before on Argus, but they chose not to do them. I remember I was talking to Box one time. I think I said this to Box at least. Replace the Coven of Shavara with the Dreadlords that we all know that survived. I think that would have been far more. I mean, like, obviously, I think they're saving the Dreadlords for a future expansion. I think they're saving Manaroth for a future expansion at some point again. But I just would have had more notable demons on Argus that we kill. And also, I think that we should have had Sarfang there for Broxigar's tribute/grave as a but stay a while and listen type of dialogue.
It would have been a good leeway into him being more prominent.
It would have. But I liked. I think 7.3 was definitely good. I think 7.1 and 7.0 did a lot of things better, but I think Legion did pretty well. It's number 3 on my list, but it's probably gonna get beat by BFA because there's a lot of things that I like more in BFA than I did in Legion.
I will say one positive thing real quick is you mentioned the Zira thing. I do like that they're kind of painting the light less as benevolence and more about like order, and all of the negative things that come with that. Order is safe and comforting, but it's also dominating and not very flexible.
I really like that.
I do like that they're painting the light, and I guess now foreshadowing the shadow, kind of being. It's not quite as benevolent and malevolent as you think. Like it's a lot of its association.
Yeah. I really liked that Illidan moment. I really did. I really hope we get to see Illidan again at some point.
Oh, I think for sure he didn't die on screen, so he'll be back again when we need to pull him out at some point. I think he'll be returning with Sargeras to assist us somehow. I don't know how or why or what, but I don't know. We'll see.
All I know is if he does return, the first two words he'll say is the Legion something. It felt like that was his dialogue, and all of Legion. He always started the Legion blank.
Well, he did warn us about the Shadows Gathering at the very end of Legion. That was kind of his epilogue. So he might help us out with whatever is the next Legion, basically, in the world. But I mean, there are demon remnants, so...
I really like the idea of him being the jailer of Sargeras. I think that's totally badass.
I like the idea of him coming back and warning us of Sargeras breaking free. That'd be really cool as a cinematic.
Oh my gosh, that would be awesome.
Sargeras' face just zooms in from the clouds. He's just screaming.
With where we're going next, there's no telling. I guarantee you we will hear from Sargeras within the next expansion or two. I think it's coming, and especially with the Void storyline, I feel like he intentionally stabbed Silithus. But
I mean, that's where her heart is, so yeah.
Exactly. And maybe he wants us to get fucked up by the old gods saying, "I told you so."
Like
I mean,
kind of thing. I don't know.
There's a lot of in between of, is Sargeras really the bad guy, or is he just really an anti-hero? Is he like Illidan? Like, I think there is that type of story that they might go with Sargeras in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna say he could be I would say he's still irredeemable because my God, the Legion did terrible things.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's going to be like shown as the ultimate, I guess you would say, consequentialist. It's like he's completely thinking of it rationally and not emotionally, like not the impact of the beings, but the fate of the universe itself in the long term. Because the Void is like not. I guess he just feels a world of where the Void Lords are in charge is like a world not living in for anything. Like, better they rule over nothing than rule over anything.
When Sargeras feels more redeemable than Sylvanas.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty interesting. On that note, I think this is a good place to stop. I mean, I personally, after doing this episode, guys, easily could do solo episodes on all three of these expansions. I think it's funny, it was easier to talk about these three, in my opinion, than it was for Classic through Cataclysm. And I don't know if maybe it's because they're more recent in our minds.
Probably.
Yeah.
But
probably because we care about them more. I mean, Wrath I cared about a lot, but...
Well, I did care a lot about Classic. I still don't think Legion would outrank Classic for me personally, but I will also say I don't remember a lot of cool stuff, I guess. Like storyline-wise and all that. I PvP'd almost completely, but it was just the social aspect and everything like that was just unrivaled.
Everything to me is story, so...
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, but either way, I really, really enjoyed doing this one. I think, reflecting back, damn, it's really easy to say a lot of good things about Mop, and I like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've learned from tonight. That easily showed me why it's one of my favorites, and it's incredible how much you can dissect these expansions. So I just want to say this to anyone who made it this far, an hour and 50 minutes of us. Thank you for watching a lot.
Oh boy.
I'd love to hear your comments about the expansions if you are watching. Like anything, like what's your favorite to least favorite if you made it this far. But yeah, gosh, man, I'm excited for the future of World of Warcraft, especially the way BFA is shaping up. We have Classic coming out soon. I think it's going to be a good year for the franchise. Like I said, I really enjoyed doing this one, and not to put you guys on the spot, but I think the next episode we should do the Broken Draenei as an allied race. It definitely won't be a 2-hour one, but I think it would be a cool video to make a podcast on.
Hell yeah, and then we can talk about our favorite Warcraft game, like Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3.
I'll just say World of Warcraft.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be a good one. But anyway, guys, check out Skull Shorties and Jakai on Twitter, YouTube. Every podcast, I'm pressuring Kai to slowly make a YouTube channel. But
yeah, I'm definitely considering it.
It would be legendary. But
yeah, I would love it. I could talk the philosophy of things.
That would actually be really... Kai, you would do some kick-ass Pandaren videos.
Thank you.
Which we need more of in the world.
Yeah, we sure do.
If you're watching this and haven't played a Pandaren, go play a Pandaren. But
The time is always now.
Or you could play an orc.
No. Don't play an orc. Play a Pandaren.
We got enough orcs. Play a Pandaren.
Racism.
You
Give
know
us-
what?
Racism.
Give us a good name.
Do you know what, guys? Go buy a pizza. Go play a Pandaren, and we'll see you next time.
Play a Mok'Nathal. Bye.
Pandaren.